So today the topic for the lecture is ethylene management for the fresh produce. Okay, during the specifically for the post-harvest handling. So in for the outline for that one, we're starting with the probably ethylene. What is ethylene? How it produced and how it's affected for the post-harvest quality, and what may be the strategies during the post-harvest solution to manage the ethylene. Okay. So probably those who are working in the food and agriculture side, you may get the idea what is ethylene here. Ethylene is the colorless gas actually, and mostly that hormone during the ripening process, that's a produced naturally produced by the some fruits, particularly climateric one. If we're coming from the stages actually from the physiological changes for the plant, for the fruits and vegetable, from growth, maturation, ripening, and senescence. So particularly the ripening stages, that ethylene hormones will be released, and that move the stages for the ripening one. So particularly the ethylene, when we say here, it may be very important here, particularly for the all growth stages for the fruits and vegetable, when we consider during the stage of ripening for our product. And what we consider here for the application in the post-harvest side, though the ethylene is aware from the last century, but last 50 years the application of ethylene as a artificial side or additional side that is using in the food industry. And what though is a natural process ethylene for the when we're looking for the ripening stages for the products or that hormone is produced, initially how they come in the market, particularly when the lightning and inflammable gas, that may be accelerate the process of ethylene production. And once that approach come in the reality, then it comes in the market that they can use the artificial ethylene for the process. So initially they noted from the when they use the inflammable glass actually, and that may be accelerate the process of ethylene production. So particularly whenever once we harvest the plant, fruits and vegetable, and once we harvest the mature stages, and next stage may be ripening, with the stages during all our post-harvest, during maybe the transportation, storage, on what type of packaging we are using, that all are responsible for the ethylene production during the process. And mostly for the climateric fruits, whenever we talk about banana, mango, they are more relevant towards the ripening on that one. And particularly why it's important, mostly for the climateric fruit, the ripening stages of the fruits are ripening happening due to ethylene production process, and it may be given the positive even for the it releases with the taste and texture of the product. But at the same time, if it's not controlled by the ethylene, maybe you get the adverse effect even. So in the post-harvest studies, one thing always they concern here, like when we looking for the management practices, what we concern commonly, that's the temperature, humidity, gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide. But related to that, ethylene, maybe we can see not in each study or each experiment we can more concern for that one. That's why we mentioned that one. It is frequently measured sometimes the ethylene. But like whenever post-harvest study, we know we talk about temperature, what is the relative humidity, what is the respiration, that things we always discuss about this one. And now whenever come with the climatic specific fruits and foods, we cannot ignore the working with the ethylene actually, or managing the ethylene process. So when we see here with the ethylene during the process, during the process of ripening side, at the fruits, vegetable, what we say with the respirers, and during the process, and what's the byproduct we are getting, that may be CO2, water, and at the same time ethylene. Okay, so mostly what we consider here is a natural hormone produced by, but now in the process of post-harvest management, whenever they're required for the product to sell in the market or looking for the quality of the products, artificially we supplying the ethylene, but at the same time what we consider here when we supplying that one, we idea here to regulate the ripening or even ripening for the product, what was required for the consumers or the market, and mostly products which are releasing high ethylene, particularly if we consider the product banana, mango or avocado. And even the another purpose here what they say for the degreening of the citrus fruit or even inhibit the sprouting of the potato, that ethylene is useful here. And mostly cases whenever we look for the ethylene using for the product, and the ethylene production also controlling here, enhancing the aroma, because if we see in the market when the ripening happening, the fruits releasing the odor, that's a flavor actually. When we say when the mango get ripening or banana get ripening, is due to ethylene, we can see that some pleasant or some smell what we experience, that's the aroma that is produced during the process. But if it's not controlled, because at the same time you found there, once the process gets accelerated, we cannot stop, okay, in the ethylene one, and that's why mostly sometimes it may lead to your negative negative output for this one. Mostly like even the fruit disorder, in the big sprouting we can found, and even the spoilage is maybe lead here. So one thing we can get here actually, whenever they looking for the ethylene side, initially we control and regulate and monitoring. That is one thing they always advocate actually. You must monitor the process. So at the same time, whenever ethylene production we are an application, our idea here to get the ripening, and as we require at the same time, mostly fruits and vegetables when we go for the ethylene side, like evenly ripen, not get a product but uneven. But at the same time, mostly the experience here when is not a monitor or control ethylene application, they found here always the adverse effect actually. That may be not expected. That's we come in the study. That's we have coming in that. Okay, that is the doses. That's the ethylene we use for the that particular product application for the product. But after with the time period, and when they see here, finally they go here the strategies of the last stages of the product, and this may be negative side, maybe sometimes disorder during the storage, and sometimes super special card, sometimes the carrot get a bitter, okay, even sometimes the buds from the fruit trees that may be dying during the process. So mostly you can come here whenever we talk about ethylene, they come that is maybe a bookish one. We always say okay, climatic fruits they release more ethylene, okay, compared to non-climatic. And what we consider, because these fruits from our region, maybe banana, mango or avocado where we're releasing, and when we consider here when the non-climatic we not coming that from that they not release, the releasing is very low quantity, okay, very low quantity. So non-climatic and immature climatic fruit tissue, here what we mentioned here that ethylene suppresses their own synthesis. However, in our climatic fruit, the ethylene enhances their own synthesis, and moving towards the ripening stages. Now, some products, you can come here, one idea here, when we see the climatic fruits also, some fruits releasing high quantity of ethylene and some are low, and the damage particular depends on some factors. Actually, whenever we see the adverse effect of the ethylene, that's what type of product, okay, commodity we are using. Commodity in terms like those the product coming from the climatic one, but the ethylene release during the process of ripening may be small. What we get the understanding here, like if the fruits like a banana, which require or release higher quantity of ethylene. At the same time, the temperature, the process at when we go for higher temperature, the process of respiration, transpiration, and which may leads to the process of ethylene coming from the product during the process. The ethylene concentration, when we look for what concentration we are using, sometimes in the market, as the demand, and we're looking for the sell the product in the market, and artificially the percentage doses, they may go even the higher to make the ripening faster, and even the for how much period we are looking at. All factor look how the effects are on the how the product's responses towards the ethylene. However, the mostly what they consider here, because they have the direct relationship with the quality of the ethylene and how it links with the damaging happening with the product. However, how much ethylene we are producing during the process and the sensitivity with the product, they found sometimes the linkage, but not exactly we can say, okay, this production link with the sensitivity directly. So that's why they always say it's not always related actually. Okay. And another one, the some product like when we say the high ethylene producing product like banana, mango, and like the vegetables like cabbage or broccoli, okay, they not release high percentage of ethylene, okay, though they release the ethylene, they are quite sensitive actually. And if we have additional ethylene supply for that product, additional sometimes we do by intentionally or sometimes unintentionally. So unintentionally, what we consider here, during the handling practices, even the damage of the product, it may be accelerate the process of ethylene, release the ethylene. Okay, so sometimes unintentional process also helping making here negative effect on the ethylene production. But when the products are sensitive, you may say the last stage of senses it's coming very faster, so we need to discard the product, and maybe people also not consuming in terms of when it's coming for the last stage of our growth stage. The idea here, we need to discard the product. For example, in this case, the yellow broccoli, the people are coming in that idea now, this is the last stage of broccoli, after that we just need to discard it. It's not for the consumption. So like any other process, ethylene have the complete biosynthesis process here, and the process even they are characterized by the Yang cycle. So how the biosynthesis pathway to produce the ethylene in our case. So that cycle is known by Yang cycle. So here our final output, that product what we are looking for, that's the ethylene. That's the ethylene for the process. And like any other process, what we require here, the precursor for the process, and in our case, what is that one? Methionine. Okay, that's amino acid. And when this getting the energy for the ATP, that's ATP supply the energy for the cell, which will give us aromate, some synthesize. After this process, what we'll get? We will get ACC synthesis, and which will give us a two things here. One is ACC and another is 5-methyl adenides. Okay, in this process, that ACC what we get here, with reacting with ACC oxidized with oxygen, it may giving us production of ethylene. But what about the 5-methyl adenides? It may be come back again to the methionine cycle, and this cycle will continuously moving on. So here we get ethylene at the same time carbon dioxide, CO2, H2O plus HCN. So particularly when we look for the ethylene side here, now from where we get the ethylene? Sometimes from the climatic food naturally, that's the hormone produced with the stages. Okay. So first what we need, that is a naturally produced ethylene, particularly for the product, like mostly climatic foods. Of course, the level range is quite different product to product, and as soon as means it helping here the ripening the product, even coming ethylene or releasing ethylene, because the ripening is commonly depends on the how much ethylene we are producing. However, the non-climatic product are not much dependent for the ethylene for the ripening process. Even if you see the process like a strawberry or other product which we consider the non-climatic one. Then another one, external one, that's what nowadays we are looking when we are talking about the managing one. Okay, what may be the external factors? And they come in here, the surrounding products. First one, surrounding products have the big impact here. Even the India, when we say the post-harvest value chain, and we come with some of the post-harvest practices, how the people using nowadays. Sometimes we have the vehicle or transportation or storage practices where we are keeping number of different kind of product together. Though maybe some maybe release the ethylene higher one. Suppose we, for example, it's like a ripe banana and unripe banana we keep for the storage practices, storage condition. At the same time, it may what will affect here, it may be accelerate the process for the unripe banana to getting ripe actually. Otherwise, some products like banana or tomato, even that is a practice, common practice in the mostly market side. They do not have sometimes the separate storage practices for product. So that practices maybe accelerate the process. Sometimes and mostly times it's like not desirable. So surrounding product, and sometimes maybe in the strategies they always come, never keep the product who release the ethylene with the product which is sensitive for the ethylene. Then the vehicle exhaust, okay, it also accelerates the process of ethylene production. So mostly if you look for some guidelines, that they always recommend that there's supposed to be no smoke. Avoid to smoke near the where we are storing the product. Avoid the smoking one. The packaging material, okay, packaging material, because indirectly it is linked with our respiration process. And what is the storage facility? Again, the process and the acceleration we can see with the link with the temperature, how we managing the temperature for the practices. So ethylene management, when for ethylene practices, when they say how we control, how we manage leaking, that one. And when we see here the facilities what we use in the post-harvest value chain as per the demand. For example, when we harvest a product at proper maturity, and the idea here, when it reaches to the consumer, it's supposed to be early ripening stage, not late ripening stage. So there is some facilities, sometimes during the transportation they may release some low doses of ethylene, or sometimes the with a product with a natural process if we properly mature that one. That's why in the supermarket it is stored, because where they keep the product, even in the market side where they storing, transportation and shipping also they are maintaining this one. If they calculating the practices that one thing we may know one thing, right? These processes we may just reduce the process. We cannot stop this one. So these practices they commonly do in the whole value chain. So mostly when we see the effect, probably some examples here they're mentioning. Of course, mostly tissues, mostly plant, they release the ethylene gas, and as we're now coming here, that is the one factor which may our responsible our ripening quality or ripening of the product. So sometimes when the product we like to controlling the quality, suppose means when we like to product sell in the market, there are some factors. Okay, naturally anyway it will ripe, but that is not controlled by us. Timing. Sometimes the product what the consumer looking, when it coming to selling market, it's supposed to ripe at once. Even the color, whether properly ripe product, if it's a properly ripe banana, we not expect like half green or half yellow, or some products with a disorder with a maximum one. So that factor, so always looking here, it may help you here control or ripening. Okay, even okay, that's like a pre-harvest process. Actually, maybe that was not covered by here, but in the pre-harvest also we can see now they using the ethylene compounds, so just to losing the products from the nuts or somewhere for harvesting, and then try to check here if they extend the life of the product. And even when the process getting little accelerated, okay, come here, once we come up to threshold and acceleration start, at any cost we not able to control that one. We not able to control, so it may lead to our next stage. That's our idea here. From ripening to senescence, the stage supposed to be extended. Means once we have started the process after maturity, if we say the whole 4 stages after maturity to our last stage, the duration, because when we look for the extending the shelf life of the product, that's supposed to be there. When it may be accelerate the process, then it may link with the 4 stages. That's a senescence, which may link here disordering of the product, quality completely damaged, even some changes they may say here, sometimes the carrot bitterness or building the flowers, sometimes sprouting the potato, that's effect, even potato get little sweet, okay, and that is due to the ethylene acceleration, high ethylene process, and that is the some advantage disadvantages, particularly the process here. Even this may be linked here when we say the ethylene process by bonding or stressing, and it may be linked out or handling, most towards the handling, when the product gets more stress or damage easily during the handling and transportation, and it also linked to the trigger the ripening process of the product. So in the handling practices, how we carefully handle the product, that is also quite important here, because damaged products means is uncontrolled, and what is not a desirable things going to be happen with the ripening side. And the idea here, when we are transporting or storing the product, always recommended damaged fruits, not never keep with the good quality product, even with the transportation side or storage side, because damaged product, there is a process, maybe the accelerating the ethylene for the climatic one. So mostly cases when we look for the controlled ripening, and whenever we see the process, number of methods now to use the artificial ethylene artificial ethylene for the process, and getting here the most post-harvest benefit in terms of maintain quality and extend the shelf life of the product. That's mostly the post-harvest. When we talk here, so some factors always there. We like to maintain quality, extend the shelf life, and that is with one way. Here we are use the ethylene properly or controlling the ethylene properly, and even the ethylene also we uses here. Some application we may discuss with the ethylene here also in our field. And mostly whenever we talk about the management of the ethylene, that is they always discuss about how to control, how to monitor throughout the process. And mostly losses about the quality for the fruits and vegetable, particularly climatic one, due to this factor when you not control properly the ethylene practices or monitor continuously. So here mostly now when we come with the climatic or non-climatic one, always we come with the one difference between two is the ethylene, the climatic and non-climatic. And ethylene also here, what we come here, that's trigger the sharp increase in respiration and ripening process, or even linked with your transpiration as well. However, non-climatic one is not completely depends on our ethylene, but they use the another hormones to go for the ripening side. And if you consider the here just they try to get here ripening and ethylene process here for the climatic one, you can see here with time, and mostly times we can see this line particularly, it may accelerate the ethylene production process with the time, and then you may we may say here the respiration also increases, but now we say the respiration is reduction because at the end we are reaching our last stage of the growth stage. That's a sense. After that we have to discard the product directly. So mostly cases we look for the post-harvest management side, and we come here some why they looking always practices that why we monitor, why we control or managing the ethylene. First one is the uniform ripening, what is demanded by the market continuously. So when we are using ethylene, it makes sure actually that we get even ripening, which is characterized, and even ripening means with the color appearance is uniform, which may be appealing for the consumers continuously and ready for the market. And particularly some products like banana or mangoes, and even the tomato. But one thing you come here, they also always advocating the practices, the product you harvested is supposed to have the proper maturity. So if we consider we are using the practices of ethylene managing and our product is not harvested at proper maturity, maybe early maturity, we cannot expect the desirable result in this one. Then here one is the uniform ripening, at the same time the color development. So even here the ethylene, what we helping here, that will break down the chlorophyll, synthesis of carotenoid. So that is helping here in the process to give us desirable color changes. For example, like for the banana, our green color from the mature banana, it changes to the yellow one because of the chlorophyll degradation and carotenoid formation. And for the oranges or lemon, it going for the degreening, which is appealing for the consumer actually. When we look for the orange or lemon, the color of the product. Then another factors here, because all we see here is like more maintaining the quality, and as a consumer even we are concerned that factors is the ripening is similar, at the same time color development, uniform color development, and the aroma or flavor what we are getting from the product. So even ethylene here, it regulates volatile components which may be responsible for the aroma. Now probably in the market when we say the pleasant smell or the off smell, so you with the smell you can get mango is properly ripe or we need to discard it. Okay, with the smell also we have that we able to identify this one as a consumer. Okay, we're not talking about here the more about technical side. If you go to market and with the smell you get, okay, it's a properly mature or properly ripe, or no, now it's like off flavor means yeah, it's like a fermented side, we need to discard this one. And even with the for the pineapples actually what will come here, that ethylene enhance the sugar accumulation, which makes the pineapple little bit sweeter when released with the way enhancing the ethylene accumulation for the product. Then probably during the logistic, that's maybe the challenging task again when we're transporting the product from one place to another or whole supply chain of the product. So sometimes what we looking here when we are transporting the product, are we allowing is to ripening, or sometimes we specifically give the artificial ripening, artificial ethylene to make the product to ripe. But mostly cases actually to control the ripening, one practice always come here probably is, you may see here, we need to harvest the product. Okay, so management practices whenever come here is not about the product we are getting, how we harvest the product, at what stages we harvest the product, and it is helping here to maintain the quality later stage better. And mostly in the countries, even the outside, whatever we get a transported product in, suppose we're living in the Middle East and we're getting the banana from the Philippines, so more than a week it takes the transport, and the banana what we get at the port is not the ripe one, still we get the green stage, and they make the ripe the banana as per the demand. Of course they not they can extend up to 2 to 3 weeks in the ripe stage, and as soon as the demand comes, so they have the ethylene gas chambers, and if we have the demand, okay, after 2 days we require the product in the commercial market, then they were going. So the practice here in this one, the banana what they harvested is supposed to proper maturity, and at the same time the transportation practices making sure that it not get a damaged product. Even if the product get damaged, though we are try to control that one, now we lose that factor here, the product get damaged. So that's why they make here, they ship green, they make the ripe as per demand, and when the sending is the green matured one, we get with the factor, if we transported the ripe product, it may give you the maximum damage, because the changes, biochemical changes with the product, making the fruits and vegetable fruits little bit softer, more susceptible to the damage. So that's why that may be helping here for the industry to allow them to transport the product earlier, means proper maturity stage, though the demand for the product is a ripe one, but it's allow them when we using the controlled ripening stages. And mostly in the industry, that supermarket, what they requested, okay, we like the ripe product now, you can schedule when we have what type of control, how many product we require for during that time. So it is more benefited in the logistic industry when there is a facility we can control or managing the ethylene practices. Then another one, they study some ethylene induced stress tolerance for this one, and the coming some studies actually they show here the ethylene is helping here to respond to stress and develop the resistance against the mechanical damage, means the surface become little resistance for the product, the surface become resistance. And even for the tomato when it's ethylene treated shows the reducing the chilling injury. Some studies even for the leafy vegetable coming here, there is a increment in the antioxidant properties when they are stored at the control condition. For the lemon or citrus category product, they use ethylene for the deep cleaning. In the ethylene side, because ethylene is helping here to remove the chlorophyll during the process and give the bright on yellow color for the product, which also was the consumer appealing one product. Then some benefits regarding the root vegetable to avoid the sprouting. Okay, so now whatever I mentioning here, all the benefit side, when we have proper control or proper monitoring the process, and you get here once we leave that line, if you go ahead this one, we may get all adverse effect later stages if you not monitor properly. That's why always they talk about manage the ethylene practices. So here the early sprouting also they promote here for the product. Then okay, ripening acceleration always happening here, but at the same time now we come here the negatively side detrimental effect. Of course ethylene helping here up to certain level to get a proper ripening one, and as I mentioned, once they accelerate the process, the product become overripe. Now overripe means that biochemical changes that may soften our fruits, soften our products, and the desirable undesirable changes like a starch convert to sugar, change in the color which is not the expected one from this one. And like here they come here when we coming up to later stage, and if the doses are not controlled or keeping for longer period, it may increase the chlorophyll breakdown in the banana and the carotene formation. Of course it changes the color, but later stages it become the tissues become more softer. Then premature sensings and softening, probably we always in the horticulture side, whenever we see it here, this stage is supposed to be extended. So all what we talk about the post-harvesting, our all idea here, we need to extend our stage up, how much maximum period we can do this one. And this, when it's accelerate particularly, accelerate the process, there may be cell wall degradation by activating enzymes like pectinase or cellulase, and it makes here the fruit softening one. And fruit softening, once we come here with accelerating, we come here, we have the idea now we cannot protect our product. We come in that stage now. We need to discard it, or people may be selling as even the low prices in the market, but some products even like a banana, if it's a more mushy or soft one, people not ready. Even the tomato sometimes get a mushy in this case. So for example, like in these cases tomato like they say it become overripe. Even in the consumer side, when we see here with the stages of the color, with a dark red color and become the mushy one, or like a leafy vegetable becomes a slimy structure, or cucumber become like a rubbery or greenish color, sorry, yellowish color, from green to yellowish color. That's what we can check here. And so stages means now we need to discard product. We cannot able to extend the shelf life or protect the product, whatever our purpose. Then so that was what we say, the disadvantages on things is if we not able to control or monitor. So that's what we always need to remember. One thing, if we monitor, control the practices, we may always get the desirable one, but if not, we not expect this one. Even that's changes in the color. The leafy vegetable, when we looking, the chlorophyll is the main component because it gives us the color for the leafy vegetable. And if the ethylene acetylate is a trigger the breakdown of chlorophyll, and then our leafy vegetables we can see becoming the yellowish one. And that may be not expected here. Even for the some cucumbers also. Then the process of ethylene, when we see the before one chart, actually the ethylene process, when the ethylene process accelerated, it also accelerate our respiration process, means consuming more oxygen and releasing the CO2 in heat. So indirectly we are also reducing the shelf life of the product. Now in simple way, what we say, when we respiration and the process, what will the product using? That's the stored energy from the product itself that's using for the processes. So the respiration rate directly coming here, it may accelerate our moisture loss, that's the transpiration from the product, shrink the product. So appearance after shrinkage one not appealing even, and indirectly it links with the nutritional quality of the product. Then of flavor and bitterness, that's also that are due to enzymatic changes happening with the product, even the bitter taste, and as we mentioned with the potato getting with the little bit sweet taste. Okay. Then the browning and tissue breakdown, also one of the disadvantage with the ethylene one, which weakens the cell membrane, and they may be easily the browning and decay with the product with the happening. And mostly we see the cabbage or lettuce, they found the brown spot. Sometimes if you see the market, brown spot on the surface of the that leafy vegetable. And even the once they come with the avocado or eggplant, some spot darken due to polyphenol oxidation. So most of the time they come here with that effect that may be desirable and looking for the ethylene side, what may be the doses, how may we look and apply for the product. And mostly in research side, of course mostly they target with the climateric fruits, enhancement, the ripening for the product, and looking for the idea here, okay, naturally product get the ripening, okay, but when we looking for the using ethylene supply for the ripening, which we get uniform, so color may be uniform, ripening may be happening at one time. So there are the number of studies, and here also they looking for the mango to extend the ripeness up to 12 days. And look what is the fact, the color changes. Mostly they look for the appearance here, the color, and mostly when you see here the result, what they looking here, the medium to low, it may coming like the extension of the product, and for the color increment more be appealing one. But if you come here the factors L, A, B, you will not find much difference, but if you have low dose, still there is a possibility we can extend some time for the mango. So here the traditional practices like a calcium carbide, they are commonly used for this one. One factor always for the ethylene management, they come here at what stage you harvest the mangoes, and there are some studies considering at the room temperature. If they have the natural process that mango is ripening after 5 days, and the shelf life they come here to 61 leaf. With calcium carbide, when they have the different doses from 1 gram per kg to 5 gram and 10 gram, you can see the changes in the color ripeness. And of course, when we going for more doses, the ripening will get faster, but shelf life when we look for the also getting the shortened, because we already reaching from ripening to our sensing stages, so we need to discard the product. And then they compare with the ethylene here, of course with the again the different doses. So the ripening time, it goes up to 5 days to 3 days, and but at the same time we may get here approximately 2 days extra shelf life for the mango. So okay, that may be the one basic things when the ethylene management practices when the naturally happening or we are providing this one. Always important in the whole one, so we cannot ignore your harvesting at what stage you are harvesting, because your first stage all looking for the growth stage, and then you are the maturity and starting with the changes biochemical changes happening with the product and come toward the ripening stage. And once it getting the ripening, this one mostly time, if you see harvesting aside, they coming here mostly product grammatic one. So they look for the best quality and extended shelf life of the product, and after that our stage will be directly come after this one, our senses. So now there are a number of practices when they look for is the managing the ethylene in the post harvest side. And idea here, though it has always the benefit for the maintaining the product for the ripening side, but the coming here, if we not monitor control, it has a completely adverse effect, even though your whole batch or whole container may be get into sensing stage and where we need to discard this one. So there are number of practices, common practices, they're looking for that one. So mostly the storing at lower in temperature, actually, that's why the as soon as the product get the cooling, loading temperature, so when they go and doing the practices at lower temperature, what is the recommended cooling temperature for the product, it helping here to reduce both ethylene production and ethylene sensitivity for the particular commodity. So when we are looking for the cooling or lowering temperature, means it helping here to reducing your ethylene, reducing your respiration, reducing your transpiration, and that link to your extended shelf life of the product. Then control storage or modified storage, where you are what we controlling here the gases. Okay, we are controlling and monitoring. So little bit concerning here control storage, because we are controlling the condition throughout the process, how modified it changes. Once we change the composition as per our product, we can do that one. And the process here helping here making the respiration also low level and process of ethylene production also low level in the both cases for control at modified one. Of course, one technological side we say little bit expensive. Okay, whenever we talk about control and modified one, the technology is expensive. Probably when we talk about control, what's the exactly what we're doing? We have a normal cold room, but now we are playing with the gases. Suppose this is our cold room where we are looking for the cold storage or something. Then idea here we need to look that cold storage to be completely airtight, where you can control and monitoring. So it's always we consider okay, this is like expensive part, but now when looking for the product for longer storage time, that always we do it now. Then when we keeping the product, the idea here to avoid excessive ethylene from the external sources. External sources may be smoke, sometimes the product what we keeping nearby, that is all we consider here as the external sources. And fire also one of the factor which accelerate the ethylene process. And one always coming here, that one in the practices. Okay, in the professional cold storage probably we not find that one, but in the supermarket and that part you may find that one. Sometimes they have the mixed food, that's another one. Even the rotten food sometimes one side of the room, but releasing the ethylene, all the process is continuous one. Once the product get damaged, and it may accelerate the other products which is we storage there. Then so ventilation. Now for the CS storage there is a, because we have the anyway airtight, but regular transport and storage practices, what we say, we need the cooling ventilation. So when product, because now we get here, we cannot control all their physiochemical changes, means we cannot control their respiration, transpiration or ethylene production. We just what we're doing, reducing. So during the process of respiration, that part, when we have the ventilation, so air will be take out whatever the CO2 and heat release from the product. So the accumulation will stop there. So indirectly we are stopping here to process of accelerating the ethylene one. Once the accumulation is there for the heat and CO2, the chances is the process may be accelerated. So mostly cases always advocated for the ventilation. Then now ethylene remover or scrubber, that's a common practice nowadays. We can see in the old boxes, whenever we buy the fruits boxes, they keeping the sachets of the ethylene scrubber to just absorb ethylene release from the product. Okay, and mostly they make for the potassium permanganate one, and even maximum product. Okay, that's a common practice. Simple, maybe they consider it maybe cheaper and easier to do that practice with the scrubber practice. They can keep the product in the boxes, whatever the boxes you can see the import and export market, we can find there, they always keep the ethylene scrubber. And then another one like which is working like against with the ethylene, that's one MCP that is also quite popular, which maybe inhibit ethylene action. So nowadays the application of one MCP also quite popular nowadays in the fruit industry. Now if we come here again with this one, just to getting the process here, mostly in the product, when we keep the product and they keep here the scrubbers just to absorb the ethylene release from the product and make it longer product. And opposite to it, what we do here, when we want to ripe the product, we may go to opposite to that one, we release some artificial ethylene from side, which may give us the ripening on the product similar way. Okay. So this may be practices for the post-harvest side to control the product quality and managing the ethylene, mostly linked with the ripening side. So probably because mostly we are the producer for the climatic fruit in the world, and that practices may be commonly used in the even the industrial side. And there are a lot of things nowadays we can see they are looking not only from the post-harvest side, even the pre-harvest side also they are practicing to go with the ethylene. How if they apply for the pre-harvesting, it is helping here to extend the life of the product or delaying the ripening. So they are also doing that one. Okay, we can stop with here and open for the discussion.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Yes.
Sir, my question is, at what concentration does this ethylene has significant alteration on quality of fresh produce?
Which product you are talking?
I mean, any
product about the concentration. Now, if we come here, I will just come with this idea here. Now, if you see here, the practices that always we can consider that low concentration. Okay, low concentration may be better for the longer period. But the concentration we need to optimize with the not only with the appearance or textural properties, we need to link with our biochemical changes happening with the product. But what we recommended here, if you're looking for the research or something, not to go for the higher concentration. You start with the lower concentration to link physiochemical as well as the biochemical changes happening with the product, but low concentration may be the recommended one.
Sir, is there any formula or how can we measure the concentration of ethylene? That either it is increased or decreased?
There maybe from gas concentration we can measure the now ethylene.
Okay.
Ethylene we can measure here. When we see simply when I talk about the control storage practices, now we have the sensors, okay? So we can get the information that the accumulation of ethylene is higher or not in the room, even for the product chamber. So now in the application side, we have the sensors for this one. So you can get the we can reaching from the threshold. Even in the control storage, once we above that one, we can remove the excess ethylene from that one.
Is there any unit to measure the how much?
Mostly they measure in the ppm.
Okay. Thank you.
Very nice and integrated presentation, sir. I want to ask you that when it is accelerated ethylene production inside a product that is like broccoli, how would you control that accelerated ethylene production?
It's the most challenging task till now. Okay, that's why we need to control from starting. Once we accelerate it, we cannot stop.
Yeah.
Okay, we cannot. But that's what when we say, even in the control storage of things, they monitor continuously the concentration of ethylene even. If above the threshold, they not allow to go above the threshold. If above threshold is going, we cannot stop that one. So that's the one challenging task here.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is, how do temperature and humidity affect the ethylene production?
If you see when we look for the temperature, higher temperature accelerates the process of the ethylene production actually.
Yes.
And even with the low humidity, the factors when we check here the process for the physiochemical changes with your respiration, transpiration and ethylene together.
Yes.
Is accelerate the process. Even there was a study when we increasing the temperature by 5 degrees Celsius, there are many folds increasing the ethylene production in the product.
Yes. Sir, is there any harmful effect to our body?
You mean for the ethylene, artificial ethylene?
Yes, sir, artificial.
No, probably. Because mostly now it's like common practices now we are doing for the product. So application of ethylene even for the artificial side up to not no one documented this one actually.
Yes.
No one documented. So it's a safe to eat.
Thank you, sir.